Hello everybody, the Music Fan is back, bringing smiles to the faces, knowledge to the people, and most importantly, music to the masses. And here we are back with part 4 of my top 50 albums of 2018. I hope you guys are enjoying this as much as I am making this. I love doing this. I am thrilled that you guys are watching this. Just knows that all my time that I've been putting into this meant something to you guys. So far, part 1, we talked about guidelines as well as 20 honorable mentions from 2018 because there's been so much good music out there. Part 2 was numbers 50 through 41, and part 3 was numbers 40 through 31. If you haven't watched any of those, I suggest that you do before you get to here, because one big guideline that I said for everyone, but I'm going to say it again, this is my opinion. All these are based on my opinion. I'm not getting paid by anybody. These are all albums that I've listened to. If I haven't put a certain album on the list, it's one of three things. It's either I never got to listen to it, which if you want to tell me about it, go ahead, just be constructive with it. It's on a video that I've already done before, either of the first 3 videos that I've done, or it's on a video that I haven't done yet, which means it's even higher on this list, so quit your bitching. So, yeah, just if you haven't seen it yet, just be constructive. Ask me, or hey, tell me your favorite albums or least favorite albums. I would love to hear all of them. So, we're getting to some heavy hitters this time around, and we're in the 20s. Usually on other ones that I've done, I feel like sometimes the 20 through 30 through 40 aren't as interesting. I remember last year feeling that way, as well as, the year before. But this is probably the most consistent list I've done. So many different genres, so many great albums. I'm really happy with this, and I hope you are as well. But enough dilly-dally. Let's get on. Number 30, we have Jacob Collier with Jesse Volume 1. This is one of the last albums that I listened to fully. I listened to some other albums over again, but this was probably the last album that I listened to from 2018, and one that I didn't even know came out until December. I had no clue. I'm a subscriber to Jacob Collier's YouTube channel, and if you haven't, I would highly recommend it. One of the best jazz artists going now, one of the most talented. He does every instrument on his own. This one, compared to In My Room, is a little bit more accessible in terms of the music. The harmonic analysis isn't as much. The secondary chords isn't as much. The music is a little bit more approachable, and it works and it doesn't. Sometimes it makes for some very interesting and really cool arrangements, but at the same time it feels a little bit too pandering at times. But he enlists some great artists on here. Metropolitan Orchestra, which is an amazing jazz orchestra, is on this album throughout most of the album, and they are a part of one of my favorite albums from the 2010s, which is Silva with Snarky Puppy. Fantastic album, and they do just as well on here. The arrangements are very interesting at times, encompasses a lot of different world styles, and a fantastic album in whole. This song with voices that's very atmospheric, cool chords, but isn't really interesting. The second song is this interlude, this orchestra intro, if you will. Feels very like early musical-esque songs like Blue Rhapsody and stuff like that. Porgy and Bess feels a little bit weird, but it's still fun. And the third song on the album feels a lot like a song from In My Room, but throughout the whole entire album, there's some really cool ideas, a beautiful arrangement of everything she does is magic, with some really cool twists at the end that I won't tell you about. But if you are intrigued by that, as well as, hey, how about a closing song of All Night Long with Take 6? If you are interested in any of what I just said, check it out. It's worth a listen. Next, we have 29, which is Muse and Simulation Theory. I know a lot of people aren't as high on this album as I am, but I think comparatively to Drones and the second Law, this is miles ahead. I love a lot of the arrangements on here. The first part of this album is fantastic. The Dark Side, Pressure, Propaganda, all those songs, Break It To Me, are awesome, and it bridges a lot of, you know, the 80s synth ideas with the rock ideas and progressive rock ideas that music's known for. All those classical elements in their music show up in here, but in a much more 80s feel, and it doesn't feel as cheesy as a lot of stuff on drums. I think this album's much more interesting lyrically, and Break It To Me is one of my favorites with this idea of using autotune in a much more interesting way. The latter half of the album doesn't work as well, though Dig Down is a fantastic single. The Void is a song that just doesn't really fit the rest of the album, and I think that's the biggest reason why this CD isn't as high, but I have this as high as the 10s, basically, coming into this, and it's just due to other albums being a little bit better that this one drops. But it's still a fantastic album and one that I go back to constantly. Next, we have number 28, which is Judas Priest's Firepower. This is one of the other ones I had in my top 10 earlier this year, and this still is a fantastic metal album. This is Judas Priest going back to form, and there's only a couple of songs on here that just don't really work for me, or this would have been much higher. But if you're looking for a solid heavy metal album that, you know, brings you back to the 80s, this is fantastic, and it's perfect for its length. There's a lot to this, but each song for the most part is really good, except for a couple that just don't really stand out. It's just, again, it doesn't do anything new for the genre, but it's still a phenomenal heavy metal album. Number 27, we have Alice in Chains with Rainier Fog. This band is near and dear to my heart. I love almost every one of their albums from their previous lineup with Lane Staley. Fortunately, you know, he passed away and William Duvall came in. Hasn't really changed much of the sound. If anything, it's gotten a little bit harder at times. I think Devil Put the Dinosaurs here wasn't an amazing album. This is a return to form. This is 10 tracks, and it has a lot of what you love of previous Alice in Chains work. There's the hard, gripping nature of the one you know with really tense nature to it, or Rainier Fog, or Red Giant. All of these have this more tense and hard rock nature that you know of. Even feeling a little bit like Them Bones, or Rainier Fog feeling like Damn That River. Fly and maybe having these more No Excuses or any one of those more acoustic ballads on there. Drone, a beautiful bluesy song, and All I Am is a fantastic closer. It's just, as a package, there are some songs that are a little bit lackluster, which makes this CD a little bit lower, but fantastic. God, I keep saying that. It's just, all these CDs are great, and Alice in Chains is no different. If you've been missing the old sound, this one fits very well. It's an homage to all of the previous work. Number 26, A Perfect Circle with Eat the Elephant. I believe this was also one that was in my top 10, and this is still a really cool concept album talking about all the issues that we need to be dealing with as the world is getting to a really crazy place, and if we don't, then we are doomed to suffer the wraths of what we have created. Beautiful CD. It feels a little bit different from A Perfect Circle from the past, but hey, Perfect Circle hasn't put out an album in over a decade, so they have a chance to be able to change their style, and I think for the most part it works well. Disillusion is an interesting track with two different polarizing ideas in the music, but works well, as well as the Doom also does this in a very interesting way. So Long and Thanks for All the Fish is fantastic. One of my favorite songs from the year. I know it's very poppy, but I like the tongue-in-cheek nature of this song. The Contrarian, very minimalistic yet very tense song. This whole entire album, for the most part, spot on. It's the latter half after DLB, Don't Look Back, which is interesting enough. On the vinyl, it's where you switch it over. I think after that, it doesn't really work as well, but Feathers is a really nice touch. It's just that last song feels so out of place and feels more like a Pussyfur song that I think that drops it down a little bit. But hey, great return for A Perfect Circle, and I really hope that Tool does even better. So we've already talked about 50 through 26. Now we're into the final half, and we're kicking it off with number 25 with Polyphia and New Levels, New Devils. If you like animals as leaders, but also want a more accessible rat-a-tat sound, perfect. You got your band. This band has a lot of really cool guitar ideas and a lot of instrumentals that work very well, clashing a lot of different ideas, more jazzy stuff, more hip-hop-ish, more metal at times. Throughout the whole entire album, they have all these guest guitarists, and I don't know any of them, nor do I know their styles, but I think each song has its own really cool, really unique sound that just makes it stand out and is really more accessible than Animals as Leaders. I remember listening to an Animals as Leaders album not too long ago and liking a lot of it, and I would say Animals as Leaders is much more challenging to the listener, but it's not as memorable. And there's a lot of songs on this Polyphia album that I can go back to and hum the melody, which is a big factor for me. Drumming is also fantastic on a lot of these songs, even though they do approach the more hip-hop-ish sound. The only thing is, one song on here that drops it down is the one that literally is the only one with vocals. It just makes the sound more simplistic, but hell of a CD. Hell of a CD. It's one of my favorite instrumental albums of the year, if not for another one a little bit higher on this list. Fantastic guitar work. Check it out. Number 24, Ninja Sex Party with Cool Patrol. I reviewed this album with Matt. It's a short, sweet, and the best Ninja Sex Party album to date. A lot of really funny songs, a lot of clever ideas, and a lot of heartfelt ones, especially Dating Don't You Know, which is one of my favorite Ninja Sex Party songs to date. If you like comedy albums, this is fantastic. I will say the latter half is a little bit lackluster, but so many great songs, so many great interesting arrangements. Release the Kraken with its time signature differences. Fantastic comedy album. The only real comedy album I have on this list, and one that is deserved to be listened to if you haven't already. Number 23, we have Kacey Musgraves with Golden Hour. I was not expecting to like this album. I'm not a huge country fan, but I like the more folky and sweeter country music, and there's a lot of really good songs. From the get-go, Slow Burn is a phenomenally interesting song. Does it sometimes get a little bit too poppy for me? Yes, and that's why it's a little bit lower. It's not as high as it is on the aggregate. I believe it's in the top 5 in the aggregate. For me, it's right outside 20, and it's because of some of these more popish songs that probably Taylor Swift fans would enjoy, or at least previous Taylor Swift fans would enjoy. But Kacey Musgraves has a fantastic voice, and I really enjoy a lot of this album. I'll definitely check out more of her, and I can see why this was rated so high. Number 22, we have Hop Along with Bark Your Head Off, Dog. This is a band that I didn't get to listen to until the aggregate, and I know that the Needle Drop had talked about her, but I never got a chance to listen to her. I'm glad I listened to this band because it is really fun. I love this side of harder indie rock. I think Frances Quinlan has a fantastic voice. I love the screeching nature of her vocals at times. Great harmonies. From the get-go, you have such an interesting sound that sometimes feels a little bit off, but I like the experimental nature of this indie album, and it's one that will make me go back to this band for years to come. And then finally, number 21, and again, one of these albums that was in my top 10 at the beginning of June, but just slipped out until a little bit after the 20s. And that is Breaking Benjamin with Ember. You saw me and my brother talk about this album. I was wondering if it could make my top 50, and it definitely did. This is one of the best albums that Breaking Benjamin has done. It's so solid. Almost every one of these tracks are really interesting. Torn in Two, fantastic single, as well as Red Cold River. I love Dark of You. It is truly one of the only ballads that they have ever done, and it works so well. Tourniquet, Feed the Wolf. I think what makes this album work so well in comparison to the last album is Benjamin Burnley has finally found his voice. He hits so much harder, which lets the music hit so much harder. It is phenomenal up until the last couple of songs. And why this album can't be in the top 10 for me, It's the Breaking Benjamin album. I come back to this a lot, but I also know that Breaking Benjamin, in terms of stylistic approach and in terms of variability, isn't the most complex. But if you love Breaking Benjamin, you're going to love this album. If you love hard rock, you're going to love this album. And hey, it's the most solid one that they have done since Dear Agony, if you will. So check this out. This was number 21. This was so hard for me to put it this far down, but it's because the next part and the final part is going to be even better. And if you want to see that, you got to do a couple things. First off, if you like any of these albums in this part of the list, give this video a like. Let me know what your favorite or least favorite albums of 2018 were. Share this with your friends if you think that they will find this interesting. Biggest thing though, subscribe to my channel and just keep on watching my videos, because there are still 6 more parts of this list. And you won't be able to see it if you don't keep watching. I'm doing this for you guys, I'm doing this for me, but I'm also doing this for you guys. And I would love for you all to be able to keep on watching these. But until then, I'll be back with part 5 tomorrow, which talks about the 10 albums that just missed the top 10. These are going to be some good ones. But until then, this is The Music Fan, and I am signing off.